going to get going in just a moment. We're letting people settle in. You can keep talking. Just another minute.
Carry on.
Eddie's. All righty, we'll get going then. I hereby call this town meeting to order. If everyone could please rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is way back here this time. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It's common to start the town meeting remembering those that we've lost over the last year. And it's just, unfortunately, we've lost a tremendous number of people to the town. First of all, and probably most notable, are Mary Lou and Robert Sutter. It's going to be kind of hard to look at that portion of the audience and not see them trying to get my attention and making their way to the microphone. If I were to list everything that they did for the town, it would probably take all night. So I'll just say that they'll be sorely missed, as will all of these people. But they devoted a lot of time to the town of Hanson, and they will be missed. We also lost two people at much too young of an age, and that would be our librarian Nancy Capolini and Lori Sawtell. People knew Lori from the concessions at the youth sports, and of course Nancy, our town librarian and my neighbor, passed away in the past year. And a very nice thing, I don't know if you saw in the newspaper, but they just renamed the children's reading room after her. I thought it was a lovely gesture by the trustees of the library. So please bring your children to the new Nancy Capolini Children's Reading Room. In addition, we've also lost David Bonney, Margaret Bonney, John Dave Garceau, Marjorie Bates, Thomas Pepe, Peter J. Rio, and all of them contributed in their own way to the town, and they will be missed. If we could just have a moment of silence. Thank you. A few quick announcements. We have absentee ballots available at the town clerk's office. The town election will be held Saturday, May 20th, so you may go see the clerk's office about obtaining an absentee ballot if you cannot make it. Also, the school committee has brochures out in the lobby talking about how to build a school budget. Might be very informational to some people. We also have an announcement from the Hanson Historical Society. They have their annual turkey dinner at Camp Kewanee on Thursday, May 4th from 6 to 9. And if you'd like tickets, there are tickets available, and Patty Norton right over here has them. So please see her for this great event. Let's see. A couple of housekeeping matters. The rules of tonight's engagement will be, according to the parliamentary procedure book for moderator's town meeting time. So if you have your copy, please follow along. It's the best part. I have the only copy in the whole room. I can make anything I want up. No, that's not true. Darn it. He has one too. So those will be the rules. Now, there's one vote that we typically take at the beginning. There are certain articles that require a quantum of the vote that's more than 50%. Some of them are 9/10, some of them are 2/3. What I'd like to do is make a motion that you guys allow me to make an initial determination whether or not we've reached that threshold. Of course, if somebody challenges it, we'll do a count. but it makes things go much quicker if you could allow me that ability to just say that we've reached 9/10 or 2/3. So I make that motion. Do I have a second? Thank you. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. And before we begin with the articles, we have a special presentation by Representative Josh Cutler.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. There we go. So I was reflecting on some of the names of folks who were just listed who have given so much to this town. And so I think it's a fitting segue as tonight I come to recognize, along with Selectman McGann, to help recognize someone who's given many, many years of service to this community as well. And I say that without a bit of irony, although those who know us may find some irony in this. And as I was reflecting on this and his years of service to Hanson, I was trying to find a quote that I thought would be appropriate. And I found one. It was very fitting from Muhammad Ali, given that he and I have sparred a few times in the past years. But let me read it to you, a very, very brief quote from Muhammad Ali. "Service to others is the payment you make for your space here on earth." And the gentleman that we're here to recognize has served the town of Hanson in many, many ways, dating back to, I believe, 1977, as a finance committee member, as an historical commission member, as a board of water commissioner, and most recently on the Hanson Board of Selectmen. So we're, on behalf of the men and women of the Massachusetts State Legislature, Senator Mike Brady and Selectman McGann, we want to ask Selectman Bruce Young to step forward for a moment. You want to say something? You want me to read it? Or? No, okay. Oh, sure, you can read it. Yeah. We don't want to let Bruce get too close to the microphone, though. We get along well. We really do, actually. So I have a citation here that I'd like to read if you'll bear with me for a moment. "The Commonwealth of Massachusetts House of Representatives, be it hereby known to all that the Massachusetts House of Representatives offers its sincerest congratulations to Bruce Young in recognition of your many years of service to the town of Hanson. The entire membership extends its very best wishes and expresses a hope for future good fortune and continued success in all endeavors. Given this first day of May 2017, the State House, Boston, Massachusetts, signed by Robert A. DeLeo, Speaker of the House, and Representative Josh Cutler." Bruce, on behalf of a grateful community, we thank you for your service. And I will let you say something if you want. Say a few words.
I'll say a few words, but I'll say very few because I know people want to get on with the town meeting. They don't want to have to listen to a long-winded speech, and believe me, this is not going to be one. I think Josh and I are a prime example of two people on the opposite political spectrums who get along. We disagree on some things, sure, but we patch things up and we move on because what we do is in the best interest of you, the people of the town of Hanson. And that's the way it should be. So those people who think there's a wide division in this town that has to be healed, there isn't a wide division among 99.9% of the people in this town. And I truly believe that. Everybody's working for a common effort to move in the right direction. And certainly you don't win every battle, and when you don't, you move on to the next issue, and that's the way things should be. But what I'd like to say to this body especially, coming from somebody who came from a city who had very little control over what went on in the city because it was basically run by a city council and a mayor. A town meeting has always been, in my view, and of course the view of many others, the purest form of democracy, where anybody like yourselves can just come here, you can speak your mind, engage in constructive dialogue, get up and amend any article you would like to amend, and then vote on it. And I'd like to make sure that as I leave here, this is my last town meeting as a member of the Board of Selectmen, that everybody instill in everyone else in the town to keep the rights of the town meeting alive, keep that purest sense of democracy with us and for this generation and future generations, and I'm sure Sean would agree on that as well. And And with that, I'd like to thank all of you. I'd like to thank the members of the Board of Selectmen, the town employees.
Applause was kind of like, that's your time.
Yeah, but I just want to thank you. This is not Academy Award where you give some. I worked 40 years for about 5 minutes, so, you know. So, yes, I'd like to thank everyone here. I'd like to thank the citizens of Hanson, the employees of the town, my colleagues on the Board of Selectmen, for all they've done and all the support they've given me over the years. And with that, honey, I can now go home and clean out the garage. Thank you very much.
So I'll be quick, I promise. It's Josh, I want to thank you for coming and getting this together. It was very, very kind of you. And it's certainly a better introduction than what I was supposed to say, which was to introduce you as Hanson's very own mother of all bombs. But that won't be the way, okay? I joke because Mr. Young and I are actually, he's taken me under his wing. He's shown me a lot, what to do, how to do it, and he's been very informative, and I personally want to thank him for that. He's been a big influence to me in how I behave in politics, and I just want to personally thank you from that, from the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
All righty. So, we're about to begin. I have been informed by the clerk that as of 7:45, we had 148 registered voters in attendance. One note, there is a visitor section over here. If you do not live in town, if you could please move into the visitor section. And likewise, if you're a town voter, it would be very helpful if you moved out of the visitor section, just so that our tellers can keep proper vote. Now, if we do have a contested vote tonight, there will be, you were given 2 different colored cards when you came in. The yellow card, oh, goodness. The yellow card is for the special town meeting that we're about to start. The blue or the pink card, depending on when you arrived, will be for the annual town meeting after that. A question we often get is how much money we actually have in the bank right now to spend tonight. So as far as free cash goes, at this moment we have $1,266,066.84 in free cash. And in the stabilization fund we have $1,095,654.87. Hereby adjourn the town meeting to go to a special town meeting. So, Article 1, Mr. Howard.
I move the town vote to pass over Article 1. There are no unpaid bills from the previous fiscal year.
One moment, Mr. Howard. The motion is to pass over Article 1. Do we have a second? Seconded. Mr. Howard.
There are no unpaid bills from the previous fiscal year.
All right. All those in favor of Article 1 being passed over signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 1 is passed over. Article 2, Mr. Young.
Yes, Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to transfer $38,000 from the amounts appropriated in Article 5, line 57, Norfolk County Agricultural Tuition, and $5,000 from Article 5, line 50, Animal Control Expense of the May 2016 annual town meeting to supplement appropriations previously voted at the annual town meeting of May 2016 for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2016 for various town departments as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Young.
Explanation. The purpose of this article is to supplement a number of line items in the current fiscal year's budget, fiscal year 17, in order to fund a number of additional expenses associated with the following. 1, postage. The funds are needed due to a shortfall in the line. Item 2, municipal buildings, replacement of a handicap ramp at food pantry and window repairs at the former extension service building. Item 3, fire relining of the underground waste pipes at the fire station. Item 4, Animal control, salaries. The town has been part of a regional animal control service, which was funded through the expense line. The town has subsequently hired its own animal control officer. These funds will be transferred from the ACO expense line to the salary line to pay for the ACO through June 30th, 2017.
All righty, so as is going to be the case a couple of times tonight, when we have multiple items, what I'll do is I'll call off each item. If anybody would like to ask a question or debate that particular item, please say hold, and we'll come back to it. Anything that is not held, we'll just assume is accepted, and then we'll vote on the entire article. So, item 1, accepted. Item 2, accepted. Item 3, accepted. Item 4, accepted. So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of Article 2 is printed in the warrant, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 2 is adopted. Article 3, the town clerk, Elizabeth Sloan. Can't hear you, no.
Want to take care of that for me?
Oh, sounds like it's on, okay.
Hello. I move the town to vote to transfer from free cash $24,000 to purchase new election equipment.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded. Ms. Sloan.
Our optical scan tabulators are now 23 years old and starting to break down. The company is no longer making parts for them.
All those in favor, any debate or discussion? All those in favor of Article 3, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 3 is adopted. Article 4.
There we go.
Mr. O'Brien.
I move the town vote to transfer $64,000 from free cash to Article 9, Line 3 of the May 4th, 2015 annual town meeting, paving fire parking lot.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. O'Brien.
The original funds were to overlay the existing driveway. After an evaluation from the town engineer, it was determined that that approach would not be sufficient for the long term. The total cost of this project now will be approximately $120,000.
Any debate or discussion on Article 4? Seeing none. All those in favor of Article 4 signify by saying aye. Aye. Anyone in opposition, nay? The ayes have it. Article 4 is adopted. Article 5, Ms. Norton. Yep, now it's on.
Now it's fine. I move the town vote to transfer the sum of $10,000 from free cash to fund matching funds from Mass Historic Commission for a historical society survey and inventory of the town's historical possessions.
Do we have a second? Ms. Norton, any explanation?
The Mass Historic Commission has already given us $10,000 if we pass it tonight to match the $10,000. Otherwise, this will have to be changed to $20,000 from the town of Hanson.
Very good. Any questions or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 5 signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 5 is adopted. Article 6, Mr. McGann.
I move the town vote to transfer $10,000 free cash for the grading of private ways under the direction of the highway surveyor.
Seconded. Mr. McGann.
Explanation: these funds are used to purchase materials and for contracting a contractor with grader for private ways which the town maintains, a sum of $10,000.
Any questions or debate on Article 6? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 6 is adopted. Article 7, Mr. Mitchell.
I move the town vote to pursue the naming and parcel of land located 1120 Main Street, assessors parcel ID 43-0-45, in the honor of Lieutenant David Colin Hall, U.S. Army, who was killed in action in the Republic of South Vietnam.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Mitchell.
Lieutenant David Hall was born and raised in the town of Hanson on a family farm which is now the site of the Hanson MBTA rail station. The Hall family was well known throughout the town of Hanson and during World War II. The Hall farm supplied South Hanson with poultry, eggs, fresh vegetables during the war. Mr. Hall Sr. was forced to leave his young family and farm in the midst of World War II as he served in the United States Coast Guard and the Atlantic Fleet during the war. Mrs. Hall and the children in the neighborhood kept the farm going during the war to feed the community years later. Upon graduation from college, David Hall, the youngest boy, entered service in the United States Army, where he gave his life. The entire family served the community and country during the time of war. Lieutenant Hall spent many years of his youth enjoying the area of the Hall family homestead, both with his family and friends while growing up. It is at this time the town of Hanson would like to dedicate memorial marker to a true Hanson native and U.S. citizen who gave his life for freedom of this nation.
Any questions or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 7 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it unanimously. Article 8. Mr. Scott.
I move the town vote to transfer $1,200 from free cash to the amounts appropriated at the May 2016 annual town meeting, Article 5, line 76, veterans expenses.
Do we have a second? Second? Oh, thank you. Mr. Scott.
If Article 7 is approved, these funds will be used to purchase an appropriate marker and fund the expenses associated with the dedication, $1,200.
Any questions or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 8 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 8 is adopted. Article 9, Mr. Hayes.
I move the town vote to transfer $53,667 from free cash for the repairs to McQuon Elementary, Indian Head Elementary, and Hanson Middle.
Do we have a second? Seconded. Mr. Hayes.
The reason the amount has changed after the warrant went out to print, the McQuon School Engineering Condition Assessment is no longer needed. That's why the figure is $25,000 less than the original figure printed in the warrant. The second part of it is the middle school recommissioning and engineering study for the HVAC system, which is $15,000. McQuon Indian Head and Middle replacement of exterior doors with card access at $22,000. The only part of this $22,000 that's going to McQuon School is a rotted out door that goes outside into the yard, which is $350. The rest of it is going to the other school buildings. We didn't think it was appropriate to be doing the card access there also, so we redid the number. And the Indian Head and middle school industrial style fans, again, we took the McQuon part of it out, and that's $16,667 for a total of $53,667 on this article.
Thank you. Any questions or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 9 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 9 is adopted. Article 10, Mr. Hayes.
I move the town vote to transfer $42,985 from free cash for the repairs at the Whitman-Hanson Regional High School.
Seconded. Mr. Hayes.
This amount represents Hanson's 40.45% share of the project. As you know, all projects done at the Whitman-Hanson Regional High School are shared by the two towns. Hanson's portion of this is 40.45%, and it comes as follows. Roadway repairs to the potholes, $16,180. As we move into the regular, you will see that the paving of the total driveway has been removed. So that's why this article still remains. The driveway is going to get put off and they're going to fix it. So our portion of that is $16,180. A safety light on Route 27, the blinking light out on the main part of the school, needs to be replaced or put a new one in. It's $8,090. The exterior envelope repairs, also known as EFIS, around the library and the new building, $10,113. While we're talking about new building, that school is 12 years old. And last but not least, there's a hybrid van for school lunches delivery at $8,602, which part of the funding on that came from a grant. for a total of $42,985.
Any questions or debate on Article 10? Yes, sir. If you could come to the microphone so everybody could hear you, please. And I see you're from the visitors section. Are you a resident of the town?
I am actually a resident. I apologize.
Okay.
Quick question on the cementitious.
I'm sorry, one more thing. If you could identify yourself. And your street.
Bill Hancock, William Hancock. I live on Whitman Street in Hanson.
Thank you.
Question about the cementitious insulation on the high school. Was there a study done on that to determine if it was an inferior product, or was it a contractor's improper application of the product? And is this something that's going to continue to occur?
Mr. Hayes.
If we may, Mr. Sandlin is here, and he can brief this gentleman and answer a question better than I can.
Absolutely. Mr. Sandlin, if you please.
Moderator Ernest Sandlin, Facility Manager, Whitman Hanson. To answer the gentleman's question, we did not do a study, but what we've seen is some of the material coming off the front of the building, and the warranty has run out, and so what we're trying to do is be proactive and just maintain that system the way it is, and recoat the front of it's like the third floor, where the third floor dental work is.
Very good. Any other questions or debate? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 10, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 10 is adopted. Article 11, Mr. Howard.
I move the town vote to transfer $25,000 from free cash to be added to stabilization.
Do we have a second? Seconded. Mr. Howard.
This money will be used to increase the stabilization fund. The stabilization fund is a mechanism for setting aside money either for unforeseen needs or for capital projects. Such a fund is intended to equalize the effect of capital expenses over time to provide on the rainy day fund. The dollar amount appropriated under this article will increase the stabilization fund to $1,121,000, which represents approximately 5% of the operating budget. The town's target has been to maintain close to 5%, which is the industry standard minimum amount for stabilization funds as recommended by our auditors, and will help to maintain a positive bond rating for future borrowing purposes, estimated $25,000.
Any questions or debate on this article? All those in favor of Article 11, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 11 is adopted. Article 12, Mr. Young.
I move that the town vote to transfer $10,000 from free cash to be added to the regional schools capital stabilization fund as established by the October 2014 special town meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Young.
Stabilization fund sets aside funds for exclusive use of paying for capital improvements at the Hanson school buildings and the Whitman Hanson Regional High School. Current balance is $50,000.
Do we have any comments or debate on this? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 12 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 12 is adopted. Article 13, Mr. Young.
I move that the town amend the wage and personnel bylaw, Article 2-12, classification and compensation, Section 1A, by deleting the end of the paragraph number 12 and inserting in its place number 11.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Young.
This is a housekeeping matter to reflect the proper section of the bylaw.
Any questions or comments on this article? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 13 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 13 is adopted. Article 14, Mr. Mitchell.
I move the town vote to amend wage and personnel bylaws, Article 2-12, classification and compensation, Section 1C, subsection C, by inserting at the end of the paragraph the following, and the highway surveyor.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Mitchell.
This is a housekeeping matter. The highway surveyor is covered by a negotiated contract with the Board of Selectmen.
Any questions or comments on this article? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 14 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The The ayes have it. Article 14 is adopted. Article 15, Mr. Scott.
I move the town vote to amend the Wage and Personnel Bylaws, Article 2-12, classification and compensation by deleting Section 7F in its entirety.
Do we have a second? Seconded. Mr. Scott.
This is another housekeeping matter. Section 7F refers to the compensation paid to the highway surveyor for various licenses. The highway surveyor is covered by a negotiated contract with the Board of Selectmen.
Any questions or comments about Article 15? Seeing none. All those in favor of Article 15 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 15 is adopted. Article 16, Mr. Howard.
I move the town vote to amend the Wage and Personnel Bylaw, Article 2-12, Classification and Compensation, Section 12C, Holidays, by making a minor grammatical edits as printed in the warrant. New Year's Day, Martin Luther King Day, Patriots Day, Independence Day, and Veterans Day.
Seconded. Mr. Howard.
Housekeeping of the grammatical content.
Any questions or comments about Article 16? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed signify by saying nay. The ayes have it. Article 16 is adopted. Article 17, Mr. Young.
I move that the town vote to amend the Wage and Personnel Bylaw, Article 2-12, Classification and Compensation, Section 12D-Vacation, Section A, subsection 1, by deleting the last line and inserting in its place the following. All vacation time shall be calculated based on the employee's regular weekly scheduled hours.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Young.
This is a housekeeping article and provides clarity to the calculation of vacation time.
Any questions or comments on this article? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 17 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 17 is adopted. Article 18, Mr. Mitchell.
I move the town vote to amend Wage and Personnel Bylaw, Article 2-12, Classification Compensation, by deleting sections 11A through 11E in its entirety and inserting the new sections 11A through 11E as printed in the warrant.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Mitchell.
The changes to the compensation plan are highlighted, which include deleting the highway surveyor and adding a new position of Information Technology Director, adjusting the range for executive assistant, increasing the minimum range to the state minimum wage rate for several part-time positions, and denoting the Recreation Director's pay is funded through the Recreation Commission Enterprise Fund.
Any questions or comments? Seeing, Mr. DePina.
South Street, Hanson. I'm wondering why one of the selectmen did not recommend this article.
Would one of the selectmen like to address that?
Which one is it?
For those of you who did not hear the question was, why did one of the selectmen oppose this article?
I think there was, we came to 4-1 vote on this bill. Do you remember why? I think you were the one who voted to not recommend.
I don't remember.
I don't think we have an explanation, actually. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of Article 18 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Article 18 is adopted. Article 19, Mr. Scott.
I move the town vote to amend the Wage and Personnel Bylaws, Article 2-12, Classification and Compensation, by deleting Section 12B, subsection B in its entirety, and inserting in its place the following language as printed in the warrant.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Scott.
Employees classified as permanent, part-time, and working a regular schedule of 20 or more hours per week are eligible to participate in the town's health insurance and life insurance programs on the same terms as full-time employees and on a pro rata basis, benefits provided in this section of the bylaw.
Any questions or comments? Ms. Marini. And again, Ms. Marini asked, how many employees would this affect?
It's just a clarification of the way things are being conducted at the present.
All right. The town administrator informs me that it isn't necessarily to affect anybody currently working. It's merely to clarify what's on the books now.
So you don't have a specific cost as to how much it costs the town?
There is no projected cost to the town. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of Article 19 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 19 is adopted. Article 20, Mr. Howard.
I move the town to pass over Article 20.
We have a second.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Howard?
To see if the town will vote to rescind the borrowing. Oh.
We're just passing over, so my mistake, Don. I threw Mr. Howard a curveball there. It's early in the meeting, too. This should happen later on. So we have a motion to pass over in a second. All those in favor, any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of passing over Article 20 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those in favor, or opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 20 is passed over. So that brings a conclusion to the special town meeting, and we will now reconvene in the 2017 May annual town meeting. Article 1, Mr. Howard.
I move the town vote to hear any reports of various town offices, committees, and special committees.
Second. We have a second. So most of the reports are found in the town report, which is available out in the lobby if you did not get yourself a copy. It makes great reading. It's gripping. Top-notch stuff, as our president would say. It's also available online. But we also have another presentation. If we could have Mr. Hanscom do a short presentation on the Plymouth County hospital removal.
What is he doing?
Mr. Hanscom.
We're going to lower that screen, so the people on the stage will have to come back out this way,
Yeah.
I think.
Get out of the way.
If you could pull back the podium a little bit, just to make sure that we don't hit it with the screen. I have a very brief 2 video presentations. One is going to be a time-lapse photography of the demolition project for the Plymouth County Hospital, and the other is a drone survey of an aerial flight over the hospital site after the demolition has substantially occurred. At the last town meeting, we appropriated $1.8 million for the demolition of the Plymouth County Hospital site, several buildings, and the Plymouth County Hospital building itself. That budget looks like it's coming in at around $1 million, so it looks like our borrowing is going to be reduced significantly from what the appropriation was. So it's been a very successful project. I have to go back up into the little room back here, and I'll show that video to you. I'm going to start with a time-lapse photography. And the building, because of the time-lapse, is going to come down very quickly. So I'm going to step that through very slowly so you can see what was going on. That's a good idea.
while we're waiting, anybody hear me? I'd like to thank Mr. Clemens, Marion, Don Ellis, and Robin for the committee on taking down the hospital.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Okay, we've started to go into the January and February scene. You can see the snow. I'm going to toggle this through fairly slowly. And you're going to start to see the building start to collapse behind the chimney. You can see it's starting to come down just to the left of the chimney stack. It was at about this time that we had a lightning strike, and the lightning took the earth cam that's located about 60 feet off the ground in the tree. It fried our modem, so that was the end of the show. This next video is the drone.
Okay, that's not it.
We're trying to lighten it up so you can see it a little better. You can see piles of construction demolition debris around the site, large blocks of concrete that came from the walls and the floors. Those are going to be crushed and placed back onto the site. You can still see the stack in this photograph. The stack has since been demolished. That'll all be backfilled into the site. This will all be graded off, and it'll be very similar to 2 or 3 large football fields back to back. I would say in about 6 weeks we'll see a nice stand of grass out on the site. One other thing I'll mention, the reason that we had the drone in the air in the first place is that we used the drone to calculate topography and to calculate backfill quantities on this construction job. So it's using a high-tech solution to measuring quantities at a fraction of the cost of what it would cost to survey it. The crushing operation started this morning. The contractor has been pulling rebar and other materials out of the concrete pile. You can see the large concrete pile on the right. That is being crushed the next 2 or 3 days, and then next week it will be placed and capped with gravel from the town pit. Once that 2.5-foot layer of gravel is placed, there'll be a 6-inch layer of topsoil, and that will be hydroseeded to complete the project. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Hanscom. Show and tell was always my favorite part of grade school. I always liked the movies. I just stole that from Matt. Well, so we have Article 1, motion is made, and it has been seconded, and now we've heard some reports. I don't believe we voted on it, have we? All right, so any questions or comments about Article 1? Seeing none. All those in favor of Article 1 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 1 is adopted. Article 2, Mr. Young.
Mr. Moderator, I move that the town vote to authorize the treasurer/collector to enter into compensating balance agreements during fiscal 2018 as permitted by Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53F.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Young.
Every year this article is voted, it simply allows the treasurer-collector to maintain accounts using credits instead of money to pay for banking charges.
Any questions or comments on Article 2? Seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 2 is adopted. Article 3, Mr. McGann.
I move the town vote to transfer $20,000 from overlay surplus to the treasurer collector's tax title account.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. McGann.
This money will be used to cover the costs incurred in filing and advertising properties with delinquent taxes, and also to pay any legal fees resulting from this process.
Any questions or comments on Article 3? Seeing none. All those in favor of Article 3 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 3 is adopted. Article 4, Mr. Mitchell.
I move the town vote to fix the salary and compensation of all paid elected officers and committees of the town as follows. Town clerk, $65,887.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
is that the correct number? Oh, okay. Very good. Sorry about that.
Okay, that's FY17. FY18, $67,205. Tree warden, $2,995. For fiscal 17, fiscal 18, $3,055.
We have second. Seconded. Mr. Mitchell.
This article sets the salary limits for the elected officials. Article 5 funds the salaries. The FY18 salary for the town clerk is incorrectly posted. The correct amount is $67,205,000 as moved.
Any questions or comments on Article 4? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 4 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 4 is adopted. Article 5, Mr. Scott.
I move the town vote to determine what sums of money the town will raise and appropriate by taxation, transfer from free cash, transfer from the town ambulance funds, water department revenue, water surplus, Title V Special Revenue Fund, the MWPAT loan repayments, receipts reserved for appropriation, a conservation notice of intent fund, overlay surplus, fund balance reserved for the reduction of future excluded debt, and election fund, Chapter 503, Acts of 1983, to defray charges and expenses of the town, including debt and interest, and to provide for a reserve fund for the 2018 fiscal year.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Scott.
This article refers to the fiscal year 2018 annual budget lines that are printed in your warrant.
All righty. So, as usual, Article 5 of the annual town meeting is the budget. Before we get going, I just want to express my gratitude to the selectmen, to the finance committee, to our wonderful accountant, for all working together and putting this budget together. It starts back sometimes as early as November to get to this point. And so we have a balanced budget here. And as you can see, between the Board of Selectmen recommendations and the FinCom recommendations, there's no dissent on any of the lines, as I recall. Oh, there's 2 lines. We may get to those. As we go through the budget, I will call out each line and I will pause. If you would like to discuss that individual line, please say hold and we'll come back to it. Otherwise, I'll just say accepted and move on to the next line. What we are voting on is the Finance Committee's recommendation. So that's the column that ultimately is before the town meeting right now. So, with no further ado, line 1, accepted. Line 2, accepted. Line 3, accepted. Line 4, accepted. Line 5, accepted. Line 6, accepted. Line 7, accepted. Line 8, accepted. Line 9, accepted. Line 10, accepted. Line 11, accepted. Line 12, accepted. Line 13, accepted. Line 14, accepted. Line 15, accepted. Line 16, accepted. Line 17, accepted. Line 18, accepted. Line 19, accepted. Line 20, accepted. Line 21, accepted. Line 22, accepted. Line 23, accepted. Line 24, accepted. Line 25, accepted. Line 26, accepted. Line 27, accepted. Line 28, accepted. Line 29, accepted. Line 30, accepted. Line 31, accepted. Line 32, accepted. Line 33, accepted. Line 34, accepted. Line 35, accepted. Line 36, accepted. Line 37, accepted. Line 38, accepted. Line 39, accepted. Line 40, accepted. Line 41, accepted. Line 42, accepted. Line 43, accepted. Line 44, accepted. Line 45, accepted. Line 46, accepted. Line 47, accepted. Line 48, accepted. Line 49, accepted. Line 50, accepted. Line 51, accepted. Line 52, accepted. Line 53, accepted. Line 54, accepted. Line 55, accepted. Line 56, Accepted. Line 57. Accepted. Line 58. Accepted. Line 59. Accepted. Line 60. Accepted. Line 61. Accepted. Line 62. Accepted. Line 63. Accepted. Line 64. Accepted. Line 65. Accepted. Line 66. Accepted. Line 67. Accepted. Line 68. Accepted. Line 69. Accepted. Line 70. Accepted. Line 71. Accepted. Line 72. Accepted. Line 73. Accepted. Line 74. Accepted. Line 75. Accepted. Line 76. Accepted. Line 77. Accepted. Line 78. Accepted. Line 79. Accepted. Line 80. Accepted. Line 81. Accepted. Line 82. Accepted. Line 83. Accepted. Line 84. Accepted. Line 85. Accepted. Line 86. Accepted. Line 87. Accepted. Well, you're a quiet bunch tonight. Are there any comments or questions on the budget as a whole? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 5 as printed in the warrant signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 5 is adopted. Article 6. Mr. Howard.
I move the town vote to pass over Article 6.
I second.
We have a second. All those in favor of passing over Article 6 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 6 is passed over. Article 7, Mr. Young.
I move we pass over Article 7.
We have a second? Seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor of passing over Article 7 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 7 is passed over. Article 8, Ms. Buzan.
I move the town to vote to raise and appropriate the following sums of money to operate the Recreation Department during fiscal year 2018 under the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53F and a half, as printed in the warrant.
Seconded. Ms. Buzan.
Recreation program costs now shown in the enterprise fund budget, with the exception of the administrative assistant position. All costs related to the operation of Camp Kiwanee are projected to be offset by the program revenues. All surpluses of this account at the end of the year will remain within the account.
Any questions or comments on Article 8? Seeing none. All those in favor of Article 8 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 8 is adopted. Article 9, Ms. Diaz.
To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the following sums of money to operate the transfer station during fiscal year 2018 under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53F and a half.
As printed in the warrant?
As printed in the warrant.
Thank you very much. Do we have a second? Seconded. Ms. Diaz.
This is to cover operating costs at the transfer station. A portion of the salaries and expenses will come from general taxation, and some of the expenses will come from our enterprise fund.
Any questions or comments on this article? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 9 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 9 is adopted. Article 10, Ms. Fitzgerald Kemet.
I move the town vote to appropriate or reserve from the fiscal year 2018 Community Preservation Fund estimated annual revenues and the accounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for committee administrative expenses, community preservation projects, and other expenses in fiscal year 2018, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation as printed in the warrant.
Seconded. Ms. Fitzgerald Kemet.
Essentially, the Community Preservation Act requires that a certain percentage be set aside for 3 particular uses, and which we've outlined here in the explanation: open space projects, community housing projects, historical projects, and then 10% must be allocated to each of those, and the remaining 70 can be used for those in any combination, as well as recreation.
Any questions or comments on this article? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 10 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 10 is adopted. Article 11, Ms. Fitzgerald Kemet.
I move the town vote to appropriate $25,000 from the Community Housing Reserve to the Hanson Housing Authority for the purposes of developing a housing production plan.
Seconded. Ms. Fitzgerald Kemet.
The housing production plan will assist the Hanson Housing Authority in addressing the town's need for affordable housing. This plan is developed locally and, if adopted, can influence and inform how, when, and where affordable housing is built in town. Development of an HPP begins with the needs demands assessment and an identification of housing stock, a review of demographics, an assessment of development constraints, a solicitation of public input, and establishment of housing goals, and ultimately the adoption of the plan by the Planning Board and Board of Selectmen.
Any questions or comments on Article 11? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 11 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 11 is adopted. Article 12, Ms. Fitzgerald Kemet.
I move the town vote to appropriate $10,000 from Historic Resources Community Preservation Fund for the purposes of repairing and painting the exterior of the town-owned Schoolhouse Number 4 located at 565 Main Street, Hanson.
It's been seconded. Ms. Fitzgerald Kemet.
This single-story wood frame structure was built in 1845 and is the town's oldest surviving schoolhouse. The structure currently serves as a museum and meeting space that's operated by the local Hanson Historical Society, and repairing this will ensure that our rich history can be enjoyed by future generations.
Any questions or comments on Article 12? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 12 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 12 is adopted. Article 13, Ms. Fitzgerald Kemet.
I move the town vote to appropriate $8,000 from Open Space Reserve to the Conservation Commission for the purposes of improving access and passive recreational opportunities at the town-owned Poor Meadowbrook Conservation Area.
Seconded. Ms. Fitzgerald Kemet.
This property is currently owned by the town and under the care and custody of the Conservation Commission. The Conservation Commission would like to enhance the taxpayers' opportunities for enjoyment of this property. Improvements will include, but not be limited to, improving the parking area, site signage, providing for ADA access, and increasing accessibility of the paths.
Any questions or comments on Article 13? I have one. Will there be more goatscaping this year?
I would have to defer to Mr. Clemens on that from Conservation.
Oh, that was my favorite part of last summer. All righty. I leave it to your better judgment. Any other questions or comments? Save me some mowing. All righty. All those in favor of Article 13 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 13 is adopted. Article 14, Mr. Norton.
I move the town. Hello?
Yep.
Okay. I move the town vote to adopt the capital improvement program as presented by the Capital Improvement Committee.
We have a second. Mr. Norton.
This is the annual article which approves the capital improvement matrix for the next fiscal year.
Any questions or comments about Article 14? Mr. DePina.
Manny DePina, 318 South Street, Precinct 3. I am now on the stump. I wish to make a comment on the capital improvement matrix. As you probably noticed, there is a very substantial recommended $11 million amount in fiscal 18. I sense this is to highlight the needed investment the town should make as determined by the Capital Improvement Committee. If you believe there should be an increase, hold that article and prepare a written amendment and present it to the town clerk, Beth Sloan. If you believe that the figure should stay as presented in the warrant, as I do, vote accordingly. Spending is like eating. One doesn't put too much in one's mouth for fear of choking, as I know from personal experience. Let your stomach adjust gradually to increased food. It's up to you, the representatives of Hanson, to decide. If it's not the case now, in the future, the Selectmen, Capital Improvement Committee, and Finance Committee should meet in joint session and get on the same page if possible.
Mr. Norton.
I appreciate Manny's comments. We don't make this stuff up, really. It's brought to us by the department heads. We interview each one. We go through and prioritize with them, and we let the columns stand as they are. He is correct that columns will reflect more money than we will get in any fiscal year. The number varies from year to year. We are supposed to get a fixed amount by bylaw, a percentage of the budget, but there are years we have had nothing. This year we're able to take almost $1 million worth of projects off this thing. The years in which we get nothing, we're running a dog and pony show with no ribbons to give. A year like this, we can knock off quite a bit. I have heard comments that the column is too expensive. We always prioritized the amount we get and pick the projects, but it is not up to our committee to second guess the department heads. It's not up to the FinCom or the Board of Selectmen to decide what the people of Hanson can afford or will pay. We simply put the facts as they're given to us by the department heads as a point of information for the citizens.
Any other questions or comments? Yes, sir. If you could come to the microphone, unless you're able to speak loudly.
Jim Brown, Bonnie Lane. There's 2 line items here that have no purpose, but they have dollar amounts to them.
Can you state which line, sir?
Certainly. Under regional school, right under high school safety lighting, Route 27, there's a 2005 line item for 20,000. But there's no line numbers.
Yeah, it's a little more difficult than the budget because there are no line items.
So if you go under regional school, go down to high school safety lighting, Route 27. The one after that is a blank entry for $20,000. Also, further down under carpet replacement, the 2005 line item is $45,000. What are we spending the money on?
The 20,000 appears to be a typo. Doubling up on the one.
Mr. Norton, if you could come to the microphone, please.
I'm sorry. The blank appears to be a typo reflecting or duplicating the line above it. And I'm sorry, what was the question regarding the carpet?
The second one was carpet replacement, correct?
Carpet replacement.
That's a request from the school department. You're talking about which carpet?
The blank line underneath carpet replacement, $45,000. FY 2022.
Blank line.
There's a, Mr. Norton, under fiscal year 2022, right below carpet replacement, there's a blank line for $45,000. Would that be carpet replacement both for fiscal year 21 and 22?
Oh, I see it. Again, I suspect it's a a typo duplicating the line above.
Okay. So 2 typos. Any other questions or comments?
Hi, Mary Ann Damasio, 552 Indian Head Street. And can you just clarify, I guess I have 2 questions. One is, so for voting on the matrix, and there's something in here for 4 million or 2 million, those votes will come up again when we actually go to expend the money?
That's correct. Mr. Norton, do you want to just, I mean, the matrix gets updated every year, and then we see how much we can pay, or how much we can afford, and then we take those off the matrix. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's just a document of potential future expenses that have been requested by department heads or called to our attention for the information. None of those projects would proceed without being vetted in that specific year, allocation money for it, funding for it, and then a vote with the town.
Okay, thank you. And the other question was for the 2 selectmen who voted against it, if they could say a few words.
Mr. Young?
The purpose of having a capital improvement committee is outlined in General Bylaw Article 2-1 of the general bylaws of the town, basically. And it's true, the department heads bring their requests to the Capital Improvement Committee each year. It's up to the Capital Improvement Committee, as outlined in the bylaw, and I so state, to coordinate the development of a capital improvement budget within the operating budget of the current fiscal year. The current fiscal budget for the current fiscal year for capital improvement funds that we can afford is between $800,000 and $1 million. Therefore, we shouldn't have $11 million to $12 million within the first year of the capital improvement matrix. It just doesn't make sense. The committee is charged with prioritizing the department head requests into the matrix for the first year and then for the corresponding 5 years as they see fit and as they prioritize. That way you don't have the department heads dictating and dividing up where the priority should come. You have an independent board called the Capital Improvement Committee, made up of 7 members at large who possess neutrality on the subject, dividing up and prioritizing the capital improvement funds for the first year, which, as you know, is $800,000 to $1 million, not $11 million as so stated, and then for the next 5 years. That is the purpose of the Capital Improvement Committee. If you don't do that, and you just list everything in most of the stuff in line under fiscal year 2018, there's really no sense of having a Capital Improvement Committee, because they're the ones, the 7 members at large, in charge of prioritizing it and then sending it to the Board of Selectmen for approval. Thus, if I see a capital improvement matrix that doesn't follow the capital improvement bylaw, and I go along with it, I'm just going with the flow and turning my back on what should be done under General Bylaws, Article 2-11. And if we have a bylaw like any other law, it's supposed to be followed. And so why should I go along with a committee who's not following a capital improvement bylaw? And that's why I voted against it. And I hope I was clear on that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 14 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Nay. The ayes have it. Article 14 is adopted. Article 15, Mr. Norton.
I move the town to transfer $493,960 from free cash for items 1 through 5 on the attached list, and the amount of $30,000 to raise and appropriate $85,000 for items 6 and 7 to various capital accounts for the following items. And those will be done.
Second, Mr. Norton.
You have to do these individually, I believe.
Yeah, I can. Do you want to give an overview and then I'll go through them individually?
Why don't we do them one at a time?
Okay.
These are the projects which we can afford this year.
Okay, very good. So once again, I'll call out the lines. If you'd like to hold it and discuss it further, please say hold.
I'll give the explanation after each one.
Ms. Marini.
Just before we start this, could we find out what's
One moment, and I'll have that. $215. I'm informed that currently in free cash we have $1,025,215. You're welcome. So I'll call out the lines. If you'd like to discuss it, please say hold. Line 1, accepted. Line 2, accepted. Line 3, accepted. Line 4, accepted. Line 5, hold. Line 6, accepted. Line 7, accepted. So we have a hold on line 5. Does anybody have a question or a comment? Mr. Hayes?
Just a reminder, this line was reduced to $30,000, and it wasn't we didn't read it that way. It's reduced to $30,000 because it's a $60,000 stat. 30 of it's going to Indian Head. We're not doing the McQuon project, so that's why the line was reduced by 30,000.
Very good. Any other questions or comments?
I can give you the explanation on line 5 if you want it. It's to replace aging security camera systems, replace an existing and add additional interior and exterior cameras for better coverage of the school and grounds. The existing security cameras were originally installed in 1997. The cameras are very problematic and in need of replacement.
Very good. Hopefully the electrical storm didn't take it out like at the hospital there.
Hopefully they're not 60 feet up in a tree.
That's right. All right. Any other questions or comments on Article 15? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 15 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 15. Well, we had the explanation on it, and there was no other question. Oh, I'm sorry. Very good. So, seeing no further discussion on line 5, that line is accepted as well. Now we'll vote on the entire article. All those in favor of Article 15 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 15 is adopted. Article 16, Mr. Norton.
I move the town vote to transfer $171,913 from free cash for the turf field replacement and raise and appropriate $14,158 for item 3, which is to replace the hot water heaters, to the capital accounts for the Whitman-Hanson Regional High School, and pass over item 2 on the roadway repairs.
Seconded. Mr. Norton.
The explanation, the turf field was installed in 2005 and the entire field needs to be replaced due to high usage and seam failure. The turf was warranted for 8 years. Typical turf field life expectancy is 10. On the roadway, that's being passed over. Article 3, replace the current hot water heater for kitchen and the boys and girls locker room area with an energy efficient unit. The water heater is not functioning properly. It's periodically leaking and showing signs of fatigue in the tank. This is the only water heater that serves this area.
Any other questions or comments on Article 16? Mr. Hickey.
Jim Hickey, 66 Perry Ave. After we did Article 15, how much free cash was left? And then what would be used for this? And then I also have a question. With our portion of paying 40.45%, if anything that's done at the high school is approved, yet Whitman does not approve it, what happens to that free cash that was allocated for those improvements?
Very good. Mr. Hayes, do you want to take part 2, and then we'll have part 1 in just a sec?
There would be further discussion with Whitman, Mr. Hickey.
It's got to get done.
Yes.
And as to the first part of your question, oh, were you done, Mr. Hayes?
Yes.
Okay, very good. As to the first part of your question, we have $531,342 in free cash. 531,342. So any other questions or comments on Article 16? Yes, sir. Mr. Hayes.
That's, John, to answer your question, that's only Hanson's portion of 4.45%. The total replacement's over 400,000. I understand. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor of Article 16 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 16 is adopted. Article 17, Mr. McGann.
I move the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept and enter into a contract for the expenditure of any allocated or to be allocated funds by the Commonwealth and/or county for the construction, reconstruction, and improvements of town roads. Said sum of money to be expended under the direction of the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. McGann.
This article is a requirement of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for the town of Hanson to accept state funding, including Chapter 90 funding for accepted roadways. This article authorizes use of funds which will be 100% reimbursed by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The budget, approved each fiscal year by the legislature and governor, establishes the total funding available for Chapter 90 local transportation aid for that year. These funds are then apportioned to 351 Massachusetts towns and cities.
Any questions or comments on Article 17? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 17 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 17 is adopted. Article 18, Mr. Mitchell.
I move the town vote to pass over Article 18.
Seconded. We have a motion and a second to pass over Article 18. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 18 is passed over. Article 19, Mr. Clemens.
I move the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to replenish the Conservation Fund for open space management and related conservation purposes.
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Clemens.
There's plenty of explanation in the warrant. As we can see, there's a number of different specific elements that are required for responsible management of conservation land and open space. And you never know, it just might include more goats, we're just not sure. But mostly things like signs and maps and parking areas and trails, some of which we hope will be ADA accessible, to significantly enhance public enjoyment and access of these areas.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor of Article 19 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 19 is adopted. Oh, Mr. DePina.
I was wondering if we could go back to Article 18, determine why the Finance Committee held that article.
I'm sorry, we've already done that. On Article 18, it was passed over, so yeah, the recommendation really wouldn't mean much.
Real quick explanation.
Mr. Dugan.
Yes, just real quickly, there were a lot of amounts still trying to be finalized, and as we came close to town meeting, those figures just weren't available, and at that point, we did not support a vote.
Probably the root of the Passover. Very good. So, Madam Clerk, we've adopted Article 19. Very good. Article 20, Mr. Clemens.
I move we vote to pass over Article 20.
Seconded. We have a motion and a second to pass over Article 20. All those in favor signify by saying.
Offer a brief explanation.
Oh, sure, please.
We learned last Tuesday night at the Board of Selectmen's meeting that this actually would require a bylaw change. So we will simply defer action on this probably till the October town meeting.
Very good. We look forward to it in October. All those in favor of passing over Article 20 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 20 is passed over. Article 21, Mr. Howard.
I vote to move. I move to vote to town vote to transfer $75,000 from water revenues to be added to the funds appropriated under Article 16 water meters of the October 6, 1997 special town meeting for the purpose of purchasing new water meters and related equipment.
Seconded. Mr. Howard.
This meter replacement is a continuing program designed to maintain accurate reading records for the water department.
Any questions or comments on Article 21? Seeing none. All those in favor of Article 21 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 21 is adopted. Article 22, Mr. Howard.
I move the town vote to transfer $70,000 from water surplus to purchase a new truck for the water department.
Seconded, Mr. Howard.
This truck will replace a 2009 Ford F-350 dump truck that has over 100,000 miles on it.
Any questions or comments on Article 22? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 22 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 22 is adopted. Article 23, Mr. Howard.
I move the town vote to transfer $20,000 from water revenues to be added to the 1992 Water Meter Emergency Fund, Article 15.
Seconded, Mr. Howard.
This article is basically to replenish the emergency line, which is used for unexpected expenses that are not budgeted for in the general budget line.
Any questions or comments on Article 23? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 23 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 23 is adopted. Article 24, Mr. Howard.
I move the town to vote to transfer $150,000 from water surplus to purchase a new backhoe for the water department.
Seconded, Mr. Howard.
This will replace a 1999 backhoe that the water department currently has. This backhoe is almost 20 years old and is time to be upgraded.
Any questions or comments on Article 24? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 24 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 24 is adopted. Article 25, Mr. Howard.
I move the town to vote to transfer $100,000 from water surplus to replace several water gates throughout the town water system.
Seconded, Mr. Howard.
There are various gates in town that are over 50 years old and do not operate properly. This article will allow the water department to hire a contractor to come in and replace the gates.
Any questions or comments about Article 25? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 25 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 25 is adopted. Article 26, Mr. Weeks.
I move to see if the town will vote to amend the Town of Hanson, County of Plymouth, Massachusetts Land Use Regulations Zoning Bylaw Section 6 by adding subsection N, large-scale ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installations to designate requirements for as-of-right siting of renewable or alternative energy generating facilities as set forth below, and also to amend the Town of Hanson, County of Plymouth, Massachusetts Land Use Regulations Zoning Bylaw Table of Contents section to reflect these amendments to the zoning bylaws and/or take any other action relative thereto.
I'm sorry, Mr. Weeks, we have an improper motion.
Uh-oh. There's a new motion. Okay, new motion. I strike the first motion. I move the town to vote to amend the Town of Hanson, County of Plymouth, Massachusetts Land Use Regulations Zoning Bylaw Section 6 by adding subsection N, large-scale ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installations to designate requirements for as-of-right siting of renewable or alternative energy generating facilities, and to amend the Town of Hanson, County of Plymouth, Massachusetts Land Use Regulations Zoning Bylaw Table of Contents section to reflect these amendments to the zoning bylaws as printed in the warrant. There we go.
So we have it seconded. Mr. Weeks.
All right. All right, the explanation. The purpose of this bylaw is to promote the creation of new large-scale ground-mounted solar photovoltaic installations by providing standards for placement, design, construction, operation, monitoring, modification, and removal of such installations that address public safety, minimize impacts on scenic, natural, and historic resources, and to provide adequate financial assurance for the eventual decommissioning of such installations.
I should note that this needs to be approved by a 2/3 vote because it's a change to the zoning bylaws. Any questions or comments on Article 26? Ms. Buzan?
Hi, Joe. Can I just ask through you, Mr. Moderator, was Bob Curran informed of this? Is he approved of this? He's the zoning enforcement officer. That's the only reason why I'm asking.
Mr. Weeks.
That I would have to defer to Laurie. She's shaking her head yes, that he was. Oh, that is right. Yes, he did. He came to the public hearing. That's right. Yes.
Any other questions or comments on this? Seeing none. All those in favor of Article 26 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it by a 2/3 vote.
Thank you very much.
Article 27, Mr. Weeks.
I move to see if the town will vote to amend the Town of Hanson, County of Plymouth, Massachusetts Land Use Regulations Zoning Bylaw, Section 7.b by adding subsection 7 to designate access requirements for driveways in excess of 150 feet in length that provide the principal means of vehicular access from a street to a 1- or 2-family residential structure as follows. Also to amend the Town of Hanson, County of Plymouth, Massachusetts Land Use Regulations Zoning Bylaw, Table of Contents section, to reflect these amendments to the zoning bylaws and/or take any other action relative thereto. I'm assuming that is also...
You finished that up by saying as printed in the warrant.
As printed in the warrant.
Thank you. Seconded, Mr. Weeks.
The purpose of this bylaw is to identify the minimum access requirements for emergency vehicles, fire and ambulance, for 1- or 2-family dwellings located on deep parcels. Emergency personnel try their best to respond to calls in a timely manner, often while negotiating in difficult terrain. Planning for access by emergency vehicles improves safety for homeowners and their families by providing a more efficient response by firefighters and other emergency personnel arriving on the scene. This is especially important in the more rural areas where response times may be longer. An ambulance or a fire truck is wider, longer, and taller than a personal vehicle. Many of these vehicles have radio antennas and other equipment fastened to the roofs that can be damaged from low-hanging tree limbs. In some cases, low-hanging tree limbs may make it physically impossible for emergency vehicles to even reach your residence.
Any questions or comments on Article 27? Mr. Pelligra.
Mr. Weeks, I just have a question about the existing land developments. Are they grandfathered in? I was told they were.
Absolutely. Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Once again, we need a 2/3 vote to adopt this article. All those in favor of Article 27 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it by a 2/3 vote.
Thank you.
Article 28, Mr. Scott.
I move the town vote to amend the Town of Hanson, County of Plymouth, Massachusetts Land Use Regulations Zoning Bylaw, Section 6 by adding subsection M, temporary moratorium on the sale and distribution of marijuana, and also amend the Town of Hanson, County of Plymouth, Massachusetts Land Use Regulations Zoning Bylaw, Table of Contents section to reflect these amendments to the zoning bylaws as printed in the warrant.
Second.
It's been seconded. Now we go to Mr. Scott for an amendment to Article 28.
Yes, Mr. Moderator. I move the town vote to amend Article 28, Section 3, the temporary moratorium, by deleting in the 4th line the date June 30, 2019, and inserting in its place January 1st, 2019. We had a lengthy discussion about this.
One moment, Mr. Scott. Do we have a second on the amendment?
Second.
Seconded. Mr. Scott, could you speak to the amendment?
We had a lengthy discussion at this, and we deferred to town council, and they indicated to us that a revision is based on a requirement by the Attorney General. That's the reason for the amendment.
So that's been seconded. Any discussion on the amendment to Article 28 as just presented? Pardon me? Oh, yes. The date, you would be removing the date June 30th, 2019 and replacing it with the date January 1st, 2019. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Weeks.
Joe Weeks, 83 Hancock Street. Just curious why the Finance Committee voted not to recommend.
Mr. Dugan.
Mr. Moderator, yes. Our primary focus as a committee is to look at the financial impact and what is in best interest in terms of financial matters for the town. Acknowledging the sensitivity to the subject matter at hand, we looked at this as if we a retail location was opened in Halifax, a retail location was opened in Whitman, or any of the other surrounding towns, would we be have a future impact limiting, for lack of a better term, free trade in Hanson? If this was a lumber yard, would we not be allowed to have that in town? Again, we recognize the sensitivity, but from a pure ability to potentially generate additional tax revenue from a commercial base that we really don't have, that's where our financial recommendation came from.
All right, and we got ahead of ourselves just a little bit, although that's going to be very useful information in a moment. Any questions or comments specifically to the amendment that was given, changing the date? Seeing none. All those in favor of the amendment to Article 28 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. Article 28 is amended. And now we can move to the discussion on Article 28 as amended. We had one question answered. Any other comments or questions on the article itself? Mr. Norton.
Maybe someone here could tell me, I don't know exactly how this was passed at the legislative level. I know there are special taxes and fees charged to the customers of these organizations, these retail outlets. Do those fees go back to the town, or are they put in the general fund to the Commonwealth? Can someone answer that?
I can answer through you, Mr. Moderator. Joe Campbell, Woodbine Avenue. I can answer, I don't know about where the funds are going to come back in the town, but the fees that were assessed in 2016's vote was the town has the capability to tax up to 2% on top of the state's 3.75%. So the town has the ability to increase tax on any sales up to 2% of the sale. So there's definitely some revenue that could be there.
Mr. Norton.
So if we pass this amendment, we're effectively giving that 2% to a neighboring town that opens an institution, a retail outlet.
It's all speculative, but in effect, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on Article 28? Seeing none, once again, a 2/3 vote is required to pass this amendment, or this article. All those in favor of Article 28 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Nay. I find that the article has failed to meet the 2/3 threshold. Would anybody like a count? Ms. Marini? Very well. If the tellers could please go to your stations. And once again, there are two different color cards for the annual town meeting. You were either given a blue or a pink card, not a yellow card. The yellow card is no longer valid. So if all those in favor of Article 28, could you please raise your cards at this time? Oh, no, it's either blue or pink. Either one is valid. Right, it's either blue or pink. What's that? My math skills are not 12. 37. Mr. Hickey? 13. All those opposed to Article 28, please hold up either a blue or a pink card now. Five. 12. 39. Mr. McLeod? 39. Do you have the numbers?
62 in favor, 56 opposed.
So, in this matter, 62 are in favor, 56 opposed. Article 28 fails to meet the 2/3 standard and is not adopted. Article 29, Mr. Howard.
I move the town vote to amend Article 2-9 of the Town of Hanson General Bylaws by adding a new Section 3 to establish and authorize revolving funds for use by certain town departments, boards, committees, agencies, or office under General Laws, care of 4453E and a half in the Town of Hanson as printed in the warrant, and further to authorize the total expenditures for the following revolving funds for fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2017. Do I got to read the funds?
Mr. Howard, if you could
I
read the funds.
Assessors, $1,500. Park and Fields, $10,000. Library, $7,000. Senior Center programs, $2,500. Senior Center fees, $95,000. Conservation Commission, $7,500, and Nathaniel Thomas Mill, $1,500.
Seconded. Mr. Howard.
These are annual revolving accounts. The verbiage has been revised in accordance with the Commonwealth's new Municipal Modernization Act.
Any questions or comments about Article 29? Ms. Fitzgerald Kemet.
Yep. I'm just wondering through you, Mr. Moderator, to FinCom, I noticed there were a couple, I don't know, a couple of votes. They weren't all in favor, and I'm just curious if you could give a little insight.
Mr. Duggan.
Sure, Mr. Moderator. The committee had a very lengthy discussion about these, and it kind of centered into what I would say use of restricted assets needing to be segregated, as opposed to in the opposing viewpoint being that are these funds that if they were part of the operating budget, in effect adding to the operating budget just through use of another account. So that discussion went back and forth, ultimately resulting in the vote of 3-1-1 as recommended.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor of Article 29 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 29 is adopted. Article 30. Mr. Edgehill, are you speaking to this?
Okay, Rich Edgehill, 115 South Street. Article 30, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and raise by taxation or borrowing from Massachusetts Clean Water Trust or otherwise the sum of...
Mr. Edgehill, could I interrupt you? You may have to start the motion over again. You have to pick one or the other, raise and appropriate or borrowing.
Oh, it's borrowing. There is no taxation here.
Okay, so
right.
if you could read it without the tax and appropriate.
All right. Article 30, to see if the town will vote to appropriate and raise by borrowing from the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust or otherwise the sum of $500,000 for the purpose of financing the following water pollution.
One moment, Mr. Edgehill. I'm sorry. Madam Clerk? Oh, we can't have raise and appropriate as part of the language of the motion.
No one gave me any sidebar notes.
Sorry about that. The problem is, just as an explanation, it changes the amount of the vote needed to pass it. So we have to be clear.
$500,000 for the purpose of financing the following water pollution abatement facility project: repair, replace, upgrade of septic systems pursuant to the agreement of with the Board of Health and the residential property owners, including without limitation all costs thereof, as defined in Section 1 of Chapter 29C of the general laws or otherwise.
It pains me to do this, but town council has asked me to have you read it again.
What do you want me to leave out this time? Vote, all right.
It should say, it should, well, please, yeah, to see if the town will vote to borrow
See if the town will vote to borrow.
from Mass, and then from then on.
All right, from Massachusetts Clean Water Trust, the sum of $500,000 for the purpose of financing the following water pollution abatement facility projects: repair, replace, and upgrade of septic systems pursuant to the agreements with the Board of Health, residential property owners, including without limitation all costs thereof, as defined in Section 1, Chapter 29C of the General Laws, as written. We got it?
Do we have a second? Seconded.
All right. Explanation for this, Mr. Moderator, is this was initiated in 2002 by a citizen petition. 15 years later, we're coming back here, 2017, asking for this money again. It's borrowed from the state. What has changed is the name of the program to the Water Trust. It's now at a 2% borrowing. The town pays 2%. At one time, it was 0%. What has to be cleaned up here, if this is passed, is there's, at town meeting in 2012, there was a 2% interest rate voted by the people for this program, which brings it up to 4%. I'd just like to clarify that, because I read someplace 5%. 5% is not a problem, goes back into Title V, but we have to make some sort of a correction on that. That's all.
All right.
Now, I'm not done with that yet. There's 7 people, supposedly, by Old Colony Planning, that is waiting for this money, because not everybody can go to the bank. The Board of Health, if they don't get appeased by a clean sewer system, you can be out of your homes. We've had the safeguard by the Board of Health since I was on for 9 years. We always instituted this money for the people for these problems. It's a hardship. It's mental, physical, everything for these people that are affected by it. And again, there's no cost to the town in taxation. It's borrowing. The people that take this program, they pay it back.
Thank you for the explanation. And just a note, once again, because it involves borrowing, this requires a 2/3 vote to be adopted. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Hayes.
I'm not opposed to this, I just have one comment. If a person borrows this money from the Mass Clean Water Trust, and then in the 4th year, well, I'm just making up a time, sells their home, does the problem of the debt stay with the new homeowner?
Mr. Edgell?
No, I think the officials up there can say that, but the first thing that's appeased when you do a real estate transaction is the treasurer collector wants that money.
Mr. Hayes?
So it's paid off, it doesn't, that's all I was asking. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions or comments on this article? Mr. Weeks?
Hey, just same question. I'm just curious as to why the Finance Committee voted not to recommend.
Mr. Pellegrini?
Yeah, first of all, Mr. Edgell, thank you for putting this up there. I know, being a former member of the Board of Health, I understand where it's coming from, the septic loan system. I think we did our research too, and we found that the treasurer collector and the loans that go out, the liens that go on to the property, there were some issues we were concerned about. How it was written, you explained it here, which was great. Thank you for doing that. We just, overall, we didn't think it was fiscally sound. We were concerned about that. But it was just, we were struggling with this, how fiscally sound it was, where it's going through the Old Colony. The Board of Health was not part of this, though, I'm understanding, or was it part of this?
I don't think the Board of Health understood fully who was going to loan the money. They thought it came from taxation, so okay. they weren't informed properly, I don't think.
Okay.
Mr. Pellegrini? Any more?
No, I mean, the research we did, we just found it was just, there was a risk factor here on it that it's no harm to the town, but the treasurer collector manages this, from what I understand, with Old Colony. And if I could ask the Board of Health, would Arlene Diaz chime in on this?
Ms. Diaz.
The Board of Health was well aware. We were looking at, because the cost was going to increase, We needed to get with the treasurer collector and find out if there had been problems with any liens. We have one existing problem, but I don't know of any others, and we wanted to make sure that it was a fiscally sound program. We have not abandoned the septic loan program. We are just trying to figure out the best way to do it before we move forward.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Edgell? Oh, Mr. DePina.
Saying that either the Board of Health is not in agreement with this program or it is in agreement with this program?
The question, Ms. Diaz, is the Board of Health in agreement with this program or in disagreement with it?
We are in agreement with the program, but we were not confused that the money needed to come from taxation. We're aware of where the money comes from.
So you're for the, if you could just clarify where you are on this article.
The Board of Health supports the septic program, but we need to find a way to properly fund it. And that's what we're in the process of still looking at.
Very good. So, any other, oh, Mr. Edgell.
Yes, Sean Bailey came in and spoke January the 10th and informed the Board of Health of this program. Sean Bailey is a new coordinator over at Old Colony Planning that does administrative, they do most of the paperwork. And so he's on board. He covers Cohasset, Kingston, and Stoughton. And throughout the whole state, I talked to someone in Southampton, all over the state, they're using this program because there's a need for it. And if the state didn't recognize a need for it, they would have taken those funds and put them someplace else.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none. Once again, this has to be passed by a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of Article 30 signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it by a 2/3 vote. I'm pausing for a moment to see if anybody wants to challenge. Seeing none. Article 31, do we have a motion? No, I think somebody... We have no motion on Article 31. Any Article 32 motion? Oh. Without somebody to make the motion, I can't delve into it. I mean, the article is printed in the warrant, but somebody has to make a motion and second it. All righty. Would anybody like to speak to this? In that case, now that there is a motion and a second, I am going to rule Article 31 out of order. I have been informed by town council that if we were to pass this, it would be an illegal action of the town meeting and unenforceable. If you'd like town council to make an explanation, more than happy. Mr. Tallerman.
I hate to be the bad guy here because this is obviously a well-intended program, but there's an anti-aid amendment to the Massachusetts Constitution that prohibits public money going to private causes, even charitable corporations. So it's town money just simply cannot funnel through to a private cause. It's the same issue that will plague the next article as well, unfortunately. That's right. Even a nonprofit, it's still a private entity, and it specifically references even nonprofit and charitable corporations. Public money cannot go to a private enterprise, no matter how well intended. So Marion and I are having this dialogue back and forth. I apologize, Mr. Moderator. That's a procurement item. That's not giving money to a private enterprise. That's us buying something.
Mr. Hayes.
Is this something that's fairly new because this town voted to vote for these articles for many years and stopped a few years?
It is not fairly new, but it was fairly overlooked. Don't forget there was there are a lot of towns that did a lot of this, and I'm not begrudging former town council at all, but this is an old piece of legislation. A lot of towns just did it anyway, just because they felt it was the right thing to do, and if no one's blinking, then no one's blinking. If you don't want a legal answer, maybe don't ask the lawyer. So.
Mr. DePina.
There is an explanation that has to be provided.
If the proponents of the article were here. That's correct. They can present an argument, but I've already ruled it out of order. Well, I see you have your fisherman's vest on, but I don't want to leave. Thank you. I don't want to leave anybody with the impression that something fishy is going on. But as much as it pains Mr. Telemann, it pains me as well. I started off my my legal career doing domestic violence prevention and programs. I would encourage everyone to donate to these worthy charitable endeavors. The opinion of town council is that this would be an illegal action of town meeting, and therefore I rule it out of order. Article 32. Yes, sir. If it reappears, I will rule it out of order. Yes. Do we have a motion on Article 32? Seeing none. Article 32 is, well, I make a motion that Article 32 be passed over. All those in favor of passing over Article 32 signify by saying aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Article 33. I'm kind of I'm going to read all this under duress because I do not remember Charlie Mann having to do this, but the town clerk tells me I have to. So, I move the town vote to bring in their votes for the following offices: a moderator for 1 year, 2 selectmen for 3 years, an assessor for 3 years, a board of health member for 3 years, a cemetery commissioner for 3 years, a member of the planning board for 5 years, a constable for 1 year, 2 trustees of the memorial field for 3 years, 2 trustees of Memorial Field for 2 years, 2 trustees of the public library for 3 years, a member of the Whitman-Hanson Regional School District Committee pre-K to 12 for 3 years, a water commissioner for 3 years, 2 water commissioners for 1 year, and 1 question. Question 1, shall the town of Hanson vote to have its elected Memorial Field trustees become an appointed committee of the town, yes or no? There is no question 2, as the funding of the school operating budget was funded in Article 5. 1 question. Pardon me? The town clerk, having seconded my motion, all those, well, any discussion? No, seeing none. All those in favor of Article 3, having an election, signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, almost unanimously. And I hereby adjourn this town meeting to May 20th for the purposes of holding an election at the McQuon School. The polls will open at what time, Madam Clerk? 10 a.m. The polls will open on May 20th. We are adjourned.